Hi. Hello. Assalamualaikum and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another series in the MIDF Conversations, where we host a lunchtime conversation between MIDF and captains of industry and thought leaders. This is a keto lunch for the intellect. No carbs, no starch, just the good stuff. Pure protein and some greens as food for thought. I would like to welcome all our participants this afternoon, the entrepreneurs, CEOs, fund managers, and finance business professionals, the individual investors investing their own hard-earned money, members of the media, students, especially those studying macroeconomics, colleagues, and everyone else. I'm delighted that we have with us today, for the first time, two guests. Firstly, on my screen, we're on the left, Rafiq Razali, the new Group Managing Director of Media Prima Berhad, and Azeem Abu Bakar, the Managing Director and CEO of Free Malaysia Today. So welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, gentlemen, and thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Dato. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Great,
Thank you for inviting.
Great. Oh, pleasure, pleasure. So I'm going to go straight to it. So let's start with you, Azeem. Azeem, you just became the CEO of Free Malaysia Today, what, 8 months ago? And before that, you worked in a GLC, two GLCs, and before that, of course, you studied in the UK. Tell me what it's like. How did you manage to escape the grasp of the GLC and become an entrepreneur? And then after that, end up where you are today at Free Malaysia Today.
Thank you, Dato. My journey started off when I was in university. So I had the opportunity to engage with in a hackathon where I met people from Google, Microsoft, and Facebook to develop an analytic solution, media analytic solution. And as a student, with their help, I managed to win that competition. From then on, I actually got a solution and started a company in London. It was a very media kind of analytics company. That was my first entry point to media. But I have to return to Malaysia. I'm a scholar, UEM scholar, so I had to serve my bond. So I just left the company there, got a bit of stake there, and got some people running it. So I came back to focus on serving UEM group. But eventually, so things went on with the company, and when I, after about 8 years in UEM group, I decided to make a change. And with my experience in that company, I met the shareholder, and he wanted me to help him with some, some things around here with regards to finance, corporate finance. So I helped him on that, and he found out that maybe I could try out media. So he invited me to join full time, and I went in last December actually, and it has been great. So with that bit of experience in media, I joined FMT, but of course my background is in finance, and in FMT I'm the MD, and I focus more on the business side of things. We have an editorial head that runs the desk on a daily basis. Yeah, so that's a bit about me.
Wow, that's fantastic. So you code? You actually learn? You know how to code and write software?
I know how to code, but I was more on managing and growing it on a business side of things. I've always had help from really intelligent coding professionals, programmers. I've always had help.
Even when you won a Google Prize, that was you part of a team, or was it just you? The Google Prize you won when you were at university. The hacking prize.
So it was a hackathon, and we had to find a solution, create a software, right, on analytics. So I went into a team that has those people, Microsoft, Facebook.
Right.
So that's how I got connected to them. So with that solution, I sort of brought in and started a company there. So that's how it started.
Brilliant. So I'm going to come back to Free Malaysia Today and what you do right now. But maybe now I'd just like to turn to Rafiq. And for Rafiq, I know for you, congratulations, because it's been a week, right, as Group Managing Director of Malaysia's largest media company, #1 media company. So tell us, I mean, how did you end up in Media Prima? You've had, you too have been an entrepreneur before.
Yeah, thank you. Well, in university, university, fortunately, I was a government scholar. So I majored in actuarial science, but during university itself, I realized that, well, I like math. Might not like it that much, to do that day to day as a career. So I decided to join Maxis as my first job, just to figure out what I actually want to do in my life. Was more towards the internet business of Maxis, and I realized that the internet is something that I want to, I guess explore a career in, and had the opportunity to join Groupon, which started in Malaysia in 2011. And had a pretty good stint there. Eventually, led the country operations for Groupon, grew the business quite a bit. And after a while, me and a bunch of other Groupon guys decided to basically launch our own startup. So we got together and we launched KFit, which was basically a subscription to gyms and whatnot. And after a year, we realized that the business model just couldn't work out. So we pivoted to more of a e-payment service called Faith. And I think fortunately, that picked up quite a bit. Faith, alhamdulillah, was acquired by a large, Indian player about 6 months ago. And I think,
Wow.
consider that, I guess, a good exit for a Malaysian-based startup. But a year plus after Faith, had the opportunity to join MIDF Prima. I think they came calling, and they basically offered the opportunity to turn around and grow a high potential business, which has not been performing up to its potential yet. So I felt that there was a unique opportunity. I knew nothing about media, but I know that I probably can crack internet-based business. So I decided to take the leap of faith, and fortunately that's worked out. And we made a couple of big bets. Had a large acquisition of Ref Asia, which really helped us grow our business further. Invested quite a lot in infrastructure to have more data analytics be a part of the business, and flip our business model to move away from more traditional display or banner ad kind of a business model towards a more sponsored content model, which has helped our business grow quite a bit. So alhamdulillah, with that success, I guess the board decided that, hey, maybe this guy can lead the organization instead. So fortunately for me, 7 days ago, I started as the group managing director of MIDF.
Great, fantastic. What a great story, because both of you actually, people talk about digital, but both of you have been founders and startups, so you know it firsthand. And I'm so glad that you're leading all these large organizations. Well, certainly Media Prima, that's a household name. Okay, so going back to you, Azeem, what does Free Malaysia today do, and what do you do there? And how do you see and where do you see it going?
FMT, we strive to provide intelligent and balanced content every day. We started off in 2009, and that was the time. That was a good 10 years after alternative media came about. If you look at the history of media, it has always been one track. The traditional media started off being very established, pro-establishment, and then up till 2003, 2004, then you have Malaysia Kini coming in, and few alternative media blogs, some of them taking the other extreme, right? Then in 2009, 2010, FMT came in and realized that the public seems to not want a media that is pro one side or the other. So we decided to place ourselves slap bang in the middle, center of things, to provide news from both sides. We praise both sides, we criticize both sides, and it has been phenomenal for us. That formula works. It has been growing. Our numbers have been growing rapidly over the last few years, and now if you look at the numbers, we seem to be at the top of the charts when it comes to English news. Overall, definitely in the top 3. But because we are English, the population is a bit smaller there. But we are proud that and thankful to the audience for supporting us. And because there's demand for intelligent and balanced content, we strive to do that every single day. And that is in terms of what we do. Where we see it going, the brand is definitely growing, and people know us we can see various influencers, politicians, corporate people sharing FMT's news on social media. So the next big thing is what areas do we want to expand on? And we see a pent-up demand for our BM section, our business section, and also an interest from among the Generation Z. So that will be the next growth area that FMT has to look at, as that's the only way to continually increase our numbers. That is already okay, great, somewhere at the top, but these are the areas in which we can improve on. And there will be, hopefully in next coming months, some good announcement on those fronts. So stay tuned.
Brilliant. It's interesting, you describe yourself as content. So it's not just things in writing. It includes video, includes other things as well.
Definitely.
Say content.
Definitely. So I'm glad you raised that. We have been very strong in written articles, but at least in the last 1 year, when I joined in, we have gone big with videos, and it's huge. And it's contributing at least 50% more to our numbers, and well on the way to be a lot higher than that. But more importantly, we focus on bite-sized capsule videos that is easy to consume, mobile optimized, that runs for about 1 minute. Right? So if you are lazy to read, you can always check out our Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and just watch our videos that are much more visual. And we also are going big on explainers, where we look at like mini documentaries, to explain complex issues to people in a simple way. And we try to have a world-class appeal on that front, world-class voiceover, illustrations, infographics, footages, so that it appeals to the masses, and more importantly, educate our Malaysian public. So I really invite you to check that out.
Okay, great. No, I mean, and it sounds like you're a media prima in the making, right? You got written words, and you have moving pictures, and soon you'll have, I don't know, holograms or something else. No, it's great. I'd love to talk a bit more, but I think I want to go back to what Media Prima is doing. But just to bookmark things, I would like to find out how you make money, because I still don't understand how free media makes money. But we'll come back to that question. So going back to Media Prima. It's got so many businesses now, right? It's not just TV3, it's not just Straits Times or Harian Metro or Berita Harian. It's many other things. So where do you see Media Prima going after this, Rafiq? Now that
I think if you look at what we do very well, is basically I would say lump it into two different areas. One is basically content, and the second part is commerce. So on the content piece, we are quite strong in 3 types of formats, which is informative content, entertainment content, and also news and current affairs. And within these 3 particular pillars, we reach out to a mass audience of Malaysia via various different formats, from videos on television, on digital and whatnot, to audio via our radio stations and our podcasts and whatnot, and also on a publishing standpoint, which is newspapers, our digital portals, and various different other formats. So via this, we capture a large audience within Malaysia. Generally, we've done a study recently whereby we do reach out to close to over 90% of the adult population in Malaysia, one way or another, either via our TV stations or digital assets, our radio stations, and also via our billboards and also newspapers. So all of this particular media formats allows us to capture or to reach out to over 90% of the Malaysian adult population, which is the core of our business. And we monetize that predominantly via advertising. So that's one part of the business. That's been I would say, the more traditional part of what we do. That's been synonymous with Media Prima for the longest time. But I think over the past 4 to 5 years or so, we've invested in a commerce arm as well, called Wow Shop. It's basically a home shopping model with a e-commerce extension. And I think, alhamdulillah, to date, that's been growing quite well. It's been one of our strongest growth arms within the group. And I think, I can share, like last year, we closed the business on a revenue of close to 300 million ringgit. And we believe that, it can grow on double-digit rate this year and moving forward as well. So at the crux of it, it's basically, content via our different formats, and also commerce via home shopping channels.
And billboards, right? Billboards, yes, and falls under.
So for billboards, it's a unique business model. We believe that as we monetize via advertising. We want to have access to all different advertising formats out there. Billboard, it's a bit unique. It's somewhat standalone, but at the same time, as we reach out to advertisers, we get the benefit of having them not only buy ads on TV or digital or whatnot. We can package in our billboard capabilities as well. And I think as the largest billboard operator in Malaysia, that really helps us, get a bigger pie from advertisers as a whole.
You said, is it bundled? I mean, does somebody buy a kind of billboard and radio, TV, and newspaper package, or do they buy different bits of advertising?
So historically, MIDF Prima, I don't want to say silo, but we did operate a little bit as a silo. So our TV team will have its own salespeople, our radio team will have its own salespeople, same for newspaper, digital, and also for billboards. Last year, April, we decided to merge all of the sales team to one, and we call that Omnia, which is our solutions provider for advertisers in Malaysia. What's happened is instead of focusing on a platform-oriented service, we have moved towards a more solutions-based service for advertisers as a whole. So basically, our goal is to engage with our clients, advertisers as a whole, and understand what are the requirements, what do they want to achieve, and offer a solution that will be able to align with the advertisers' goals based on the platforms that we have. So we're no longer going to tell people, hey, buy ads on TV, right? Because it's big. If they have specific objectives in place, we will be able to provide a solution that's cross-platform in nature that will enable our clients to fulfill the objectives significantly better. And I think to date, that's been quite a success. I think it was a big gamble, but we're quite happy of the results to date. And I think year on year we do see advertising revenues going up, despite having to go through the pandemic as well. So I think so far the response has been really good.
Oh, congratulations! That's good to hear. And TV3 News is still the #1 news program in Malaysia, isn't it?
Yes, it is. So every day from 8 to 9 p.m., more than 3 million Malaysians will log into Bulletin Utama. It's still the most dominant news program in Malaysia. Yeah,
it is. How do you know how old the viewership is? My impression is that only older people watch.
Okay, so the viewership, you can actually break it down to two different parts of where people actually watch Bulletin Utama. The ones that watch it on TV, on broadcast, right, via appointment viewing 8 to 9 p.m. every day, tend to be slightly older. We do have young people as well, but majority of our audience there are 35 and above. However, if you look at our viewership on specific bite-sized content from Bulletin Utama itself, more on demand in nature, on YouTube, we actually do close to 100 million views a month on our Bulletin Utama news programs itself, right? So while the content is the same, right, because we make it available on various different channels or outlets, it allows us to capture actually the vast majority of the population.
Incredible. And how many people work now, Media Prima? Is it the thousands?
2,500 people.
Right. Okay. Thanks. So go back to you, Azeem. You've got FMT. How many people work for you? How many people work for?
Yeah, 75 at the moment.
And do you think you can take over the viewership of TV3 and News Straight Times with 800 people? That's supposed to be the power of the internet, right? With with 100 people, you can take over and eat the lunch of everybody in the.
Well, I mean, I don't see it as me taking over them, but I would say that at 75 people, we are quite lean. We are quite lean and mean for the kind of traffic that we are getting. So being at the top, and we know, maybe other counterparts are operating at, more bigger team, maybe, more than 200 people. But we are fortunate to be able to move, in a smaller, leaner, meaner team. We generally, I wouldn't say we always compare or look at, other people's numbers. We strive to provide the intelligent and balanced journalism to people, and our relationship is with the audience, right? And when we manage to live up to their expectations, then they will come and read us. So we are fortunate enough to have about 5 to 8 million unique visitors per month on FMT. That is a sizable portion as a proportion to the digital population in Malaysia. And by just focusing on that, focusing on our relationship, we'll do all right, right? And it's not really about taking over another portal. If I'm sure they have their own niche, their own audience as well. And the thing is, because online is infinite, right? You can consume all of this all the content online, and it's not like it's not a zero-sum game between us. And what's important is actually is about having everybody try to live up to the highest journalistic principles, right?
Be very modest. Okay. I know you're toning down your ambition here because you don't want to say so in front of Rafiq. But I think so. With 75 people, how many of that is editorial? How many of those out of 75? How many people actually do that?
About 60% are in editorial. 60% of them.
And the rest of it, you can tie a whole platform with that. In the old days, right, to run a media company, you have to have a printing press, you got to have this, you got to have that. It's like thousands of people, right? And you don't have any of that baggage, right? You have no printing press, right? You have no print media at all, do you? In FMC?
No, we run on 100% digital.
100% digital, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, presumably it's scalable, where they have 1 million or 10 million people. You don't need any more people to do your back office, right? It's the same.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
So it's the thing. I mean, this is, the things which suffered the first was print media. That's what digital really killed off. And if we want to see where the internet is taking us, I think looking at someone like FMT compared to an old media brand is telling what you can do with so few people. Do you think you can be? Do you think there could be a time where it's only online portals like yourself left telling the news? I think that's a possibility.
Sorry?
Where you totally replace the old media and only new media survives. Is that? I mean, not just you alone, not just FMT alone, but FMT plus Malaysia Kini plus whatever else. Sinaharian is mainly.
They have print. Sinaharian has print.
Right.
Yeah.
Very small.
I wouldn't say that we will replace, because many of these print brands, they are heading towards digital as well. The question is how fast, right? So to go into digital, there's a digital strategy that you have to put. And I can see a lot of other media agencies that run on print. I would say that some of their digital platform are not yet fully optimized, right? For example, it's able to sort of detect behavior and be able to target better. And the interface is very important, right? Because now we consume online media from mobile. So the interface of your mobile has to be the text has to be quite big, right? The text has to be quite big. And if they can move there quickly, then I would say they will survive. But I would think if they continue to rely on print, it will be very challenging. I think maybe Rafiq can expand on that.
Yeah, right. But you don't charge, right? You don't charge anything, right? It's not like a newspaper where you have to pay, and you don't intend to do a subscription service?
No, Dato'. We have no intention at the moment. We have other ways of, Yeah,
I'm sure you do. I mean, you can. Yeah. But your advertising, do people advertise through you, or do they advertise through Google and Google picks you up? So
very interesting question. It's a bit technical, but I'll try to explain it in a simple way. There are two types of revenue stream for FMT. The first is something called programmatic ads, which you just mentioned. So we have spaces on the website where Google can actually place their ads at, right?
So that's how Google follows me. Is it if I go to your website and suddenly Google shows me something I was searching 2 minutes ago? That's Google doing it. It's not you.
It's Google doing it, not us. Not us.
Right? You don't know that I've gone to look at Adidas sneakers.
So Google sort of ran that space from us, and they'll give us a cut. So that's the first. But I would say that contributes to the biggest portion of the revenue. But how we make money, I think, is more on strategic communications and education. So what media companies like SMT, especially us, what we love doing is tell stories. So it's all about telling a great story about our client, and that's how we get business. And FMT is very strong on national policies. We engage on national policy advocacy for groups and companies. We help them with their public relationship. But what's important here is that whatever that they want to put out must be in line with our values. It cannot be a situation where we promote a problematic company, trying to clean up or make them look good because of after scandal. We will not accept that kind of client.
But you do that kind of like how do I say, public relations? Is it public relations work?
Yeah, we do have
That's
that
what
kind of
I see. What
services.
about you? What about TV, what about in Media Prima? Is that advertising model the same, or do you actually sell advertising direct to people? Or how does it work? Rafiq?
So I think on our more, I would say, traditional platforms, advertising is a bit more straightforward. On television, it's predominantly via what we call branded content, where we do a particular program with the advertiser in mind, and also via what we call spot buys, which is the usual 30-second ads you see in between our shows. So that's like called business of television. On radio, it's the same thing. It's audio ads that you hear. On billboards, it's pretty straightforward. When you drive, you see the particular display ad and whatnot. On digital, majority of I would say publishers tend to rely on what Azeem mentioned as programmatic revenues, which is basically ads that Google or whoever serves on a particular website. We used to rely a lot on that, but we've pivoted a lot of our monetization of our digital assets towards a more sponsored content business model. What that means is basically similar to Azeem. We craft stories or craft content that aligns with what the advertisers want a story, right? So basically, if they launch a new product or if they want to promote a new feature in their items or whatnot, we tell it in a format which is very content centric. So it's not an ad per se. It's a story that highlights whatever the advertisers would like to highlight. I think this is a particular skill set that doesn't come overnight. It was crafted after many years of trial and error and optimization and whatnot. But fortunately, we've become quite good at it, which has allowed us to really scale this business to what it is today.
Right. So I mean, some websites are called sponsored content. Is that what
Yes.
this is? What? Yeah. So sometimes you see sponsored content at the bottom. That's the kind of stuff
yes.
You're talking about. So, I mean, this is the thing about the internet world, right? Is that although you serve Malaysia, you are predominantly Malaysian, your content predominantly Malaysian focus, and the advertisers you want are Malaysian, but yet the person you're competing against the most is Google and Facebook, right? They're eating up all the advertising dollars. I mean, what can be done? I can't believe that every time I spend money to advertise, I'm just paying Google or Facebook. It sounds crazy, right? Is there a better way of doing this?
Yeah, I can take that. It's not a Malaysian problem. It's actually a global problem.
Yeah, it's a global problem.
Everywhere outside of China, Google and Facebook dominates the digital advertising dollars. Why not China? Because China bans Google and Facebook. So they took a different approach to it, right? So I think this is something that majority of media companies globally have been trying to crack. Going heads on might not be, the best strategy simply because of the amount of cash and ability and data which these companies have. But I think, for us, our strategy is to rely on what we're really good at. We're good at content. And when we focus our business model on sponsored content, it's something that we know Facebook and Google cannot do. And I think that's why we've been able to grow the business and capture a larger piece of the pie over the past few years or so. But it doesn't take away from the fact that those two companies are still very much dominant, right? But one interesting case would be in Australia recently. Where they took a different approach towards I guess dealing with the likes of Google and Facebook, where their parliament decided that hey, Google and Facebook, you have to pay for utilizing the content that you actually get from local media companies. So of course there was I guess a fight. Both parties didn't want to relent, but eventually both Google and Facebook decided, instead of allowing the Australian government to decide on what rate to pay, let's just sign a deal with every media company in Australia, which was what happened. So I think there might be a future whereby Google and Facebook will work closer with local media companies to populate their platforms with content that comes from legitimate sources such as MIDF Prima and also FMT. I think those are the kind of models that might succeed in the future. So it started.
But surely they should. I mean, I don't know. If I go on Microsoft, sometimes I see Free Malaysia Today on Microsoft News, right? Do they pay you for it, or do they just steal it from you? Or
Yeah, they do syndicate from us. we do get paid, for it. But it's just a small amount, just to to leverage on their audience base, which is maybe slightly different. We do it with some partners, not all, but we don't do it for free. But if they copy paste our content, definitely we will send a legal letter.
Really? Okay. No, but all your stuff gets forwarded, especially gets forwarded on WhatsApp and stuff like that. I'm sure you get nothing for it, right? And yet WhatsApp must get something from doing it. If somebody WhatsApp me a FMT article, does FMT get anything from it?
So when you share our link and you click and you go to our site, we get your traffic.
Right.
Yeah. So and that's good for us, because that's how we get the numbers, and thereby the numbers are what we show to advertisers, and that's what make them purchase our slots for sponsored content. Yes, that's what Rafiq pointed out.
Right. Rafiq, you say your stuff is on YouTube right now, but you got Tonton. Why don't you use Tonton instead of YouTube? I mean, why? I mean, YouTube is just giving Google more money, right?
So Tonton is an interesting story. It's an 11-year-old brand. I think we launched Tonton way before online streaming was cool. Maybe a bit too early, to be fair. Yeah. But I think Tonton is still there. Tonton at the current juncture, the engine of Tonton is actually running on the YouTube engine, right? So why we decided upon that was because running a streaming platform is very, very expensive.
Right.
For the longest time, we've been investing a lot in Tonton, and unfortunately for us, prior to this, the business model just couldn't sustain those kind of investments annually. So we decided 2 years ago to do a partnership with Google or YouTube, whereby we would provide content, share content as a whole, and in return they will provide us the engine of Tonton that we can utilize, basically at no cost. So because of that, our video business model on digital platforms have become a profitable venture. We have stopped, I would say, the cash burn of investing in a platform that was very difficult to be profitable for the longest time, and within a couple of months, it totally switched from a heavy cash burn business towards a profit-making business. Okay. And I think so far that's been quite helpful for us in our turnaround plan. However, it was always meant to be a solution that would allow us to self-sustain for a short time. We do understand the importance of having a streaming platform long term, and I think there will be some decisions that we'll be making soon on what do we do in this particular space moving forward.
And your what about Netflix? You also sell to Netflix some of your programs?
Yes, we do. We actually sell to. Again, our core strengths is producing local content. Our local dramas are the most watched dramas in Malaysia. We're really strong in news and current affairs, and over the past few years, we've been successful with our movies as well. So again, we deploy a very open strategy. If it makes sense for us to license our dramas to what we call OTT platforms or streaming platforms, then we do that. At the same time, we also populate our own platforms or Tonton with the content that we also have. So not only selling to Netflix, we also do business with pretty much every streaming platform out there.
No, that's good. That's good. So in a sense, it has opened new opportunities. So the internet hasn't been all bad for Media Prima. It has opened up other opportunities to monetize your content. That's good. That's good. So going back to FMT, your editorial is mainly Malaysian, right? You cover Malaysian news. You don't have a desk. You don't have a reporter based in, I don't know, Tokyo or somewhere like that. Filing
not yet.
Not yet.
But the ambition is always there.
Is it? Okay. To be like a. Okay.
Yeah, I mean now we are focusing on Malaysian news. That is also good because then it gives us local expertise in Malaysia, and that makes us a force to be reckoned with, at least in the context of the global scheme of things, because they know FMT covers Malaysian news really extensively, and quite influential when you look at numbers.
But it's mainly political news, right? Do you do gossip, celebrity gossip as well?
No. So the DNA is national news. We don't go into pure entertainment. So we have national news, economy, business, even automotive, technology, lifestyle is very big, business. So we cover a universal spectrum of news. The political stories tend to do quite well because we write both sides. So people love it and people share it. Yeah, but we have other section as well, and we try, at least editorially we try to live up to world standard. We refer to Reuters, to always up our game. And when you ask about whether we're going to have reporters abroad, definitely the ambition is there. Always having this kind of bouncing of ideas with Rafiq on how once we have solidified our ground in Malaysia, we can apply the same formula elsewhere. Years down the line.
No, in the old days, Straits Times would have a reporter based in the major cities, right? I'm not sure Straits Times does it. I think it's just too expensive to do it now.
We don't anymore.
No, we have a stringer somewhere, but okay, these are right. So that's it. So that's the ambition right now. Okay, so you keep saying both sides of the question. You should show both sides of the story. I mean, sometimes they have more than two sides of the story, of course, but especially in Malaysia, there's always another angle.
You're right. Yeah. Now we've seen so many kind of sites now.
But I mean, this thing about editorial content and press freedom and all that, I mean, in other countries you have a Rupert Murdoch type figure, right, who seems to own everything and effectively decides what gets published, and all the editors always say I have editorial freedom, but in the end there's a shareholder there. Do you feel the same here? Do you feel the same that the shareholder, the owner, in the end has a huge influence over the portal? I mean, it used to be the case that most of our media things were owned by the government, or not by the government, by someone linked to the government. Do you still find that's the case, Azeem?
I love that question. You see, there must be a clear line between editorial and business, right? So the shareholder, clearly they put money into the company, they want to see a certain return. But in the more Western, more advanced nation, this is people understand this kind of concept where the shareholder would try to distance himself from editorial, and even in legal agreements in corporate structuring, there's usually a clause to say, the shareholders will sort of allow the editorial to report independently. And for FMT at least, we understand that, and we are applying that kind of world standard in the company. And so far it's been doing pretty well. We do not get calls or anybody asking us or stakeholders asking us to do things in a certain way at all. And that's the first thing. The second thing is another check and balance is our own audience, right? Our audience, at least for FMT, 91% of our readers have degrees. So they would, if we fail to be objective or balanced, they will stop reading us, and we don't want that. It's bad for us. And that would actually deteriorate the business. So that's why we have made some mistakes in the past, and people would actually give feedback, which we value a lot. So that's how we try to maintain our balanced journalism. And for other news agencies, it's important for them to understand this, that if no matter how much money you put in the company, right, if you are expected to be a mouthpiece, people just won't read you, and eventually the business will go bust.
Okay, so you use that business argument rather than that's a good argument, I guess. So you don't have a Rupert Murdoch like shareholder who tells you anything.
No, not in that way.
Okay. All right, okay. Is that the same for you, Rafiq? Do you get any pressure to do your editorial a certain way? And it used to be the case, I think, but now it seems like TV3 is far more open in it's what it talks about.
I mean, if you're just being very transparent and frank, there'll always be pressure to go a certain way, right? And I think how media is at the moment, bipartisanship seems to be something that is difficult to achieve. So if you go one way, some audiences will think, hey, this guy's biased that way. If you go the other, and vice versa happens, right? So for us, we do our best again, to basically produce content that makes sense to the audiences that actually watch our programs and whatnot. We try to be as independent as possible, but the reality is, in the end of the day, this is a business. We need to be able to generate revenues, pay our bills, pay salaries and whatnot. So ultimately, there has, even though there is that line between editorial or content with the business, sometimes the line gets a bit blurry simply because in the end of the day, it's a business. we must sustain, and we'll do what is necessary to ensure that the business continues to grow moving forward.
Okay. Fake news and influencers. I mean, what do you do? I mean, I'll just close off this kind of media discussion on this point. I mean, so, what do you think about fake news and influencers?
Now, fake
Influencers,
news.
yeah.
Fake news
Influencers,
is fake news and influencers. Yeah, they are rampant. Okay, it's happening around the world, but generally the major media organization, the major brands, it is in their interest to not embark on fake news, right? Because they will lose readers.
Yeah.
But the problem stems from bloggers or some influencers who may not know, not have the credibility to say certain things and put out something that are misleading, right? For example, and maybe those with agenda, right? For example, Russia. There's the claim that Russia flooded America's elections with content to skew them in a certain way, right? Then we hear about Cambridge Analytica trying to use psychographic to profile people and target certain messaging, right? And the fake news is also rampant when there's this confirmation biasness in people, where people start to believe certain things because they have an initial belief, so belief that aids their initial belief in a certain way.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So, like for example, the anti-vax and a lot of conspiracy going on. So the challenge is real, and what we need to do as media organization is to educate people to be aware of these kind of things. Once there is awareness, then people will be able to have their self-filter. It's really difficult to stop the culprits from doing this. They will continue to do this. They have been around for a long time, but in different medium, and the best way is education. And the media agencies like us, Media Prima, FMT, we have a duty to the public to educate them, about these things, and provide information with verified sources that have expertise in certain area to sort of argue against influencers, right? If we are able to do that, we have a more educated society, we'll be able to repel fake news.
I think if you look at a Wall Street Journal article about a week ago, where there was an expose by a whistleblower that used to be a Facebook employee.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So basically, I think in a day, fake news will always be created. If they don't have a platform to prosper, then nobody will read fake news. The problem is that you have platforms now that allow fake news to proliferate, and I think that's why it's become a major issue for most of us in recent times. So, example, what the whistleblower mentioned was that in 2018, Facebook changed the algorithm on their content recommendation engine, which basically prioritizes content to appear based on the amount of potential engagements the content would be able to get. Engagements meaning comments or likes or whatnot, right? And based on their own internal research, the types of content that is the most engaging content are content that makes people angry. That is
angry.
It's their own Facebook research, right? So because of that, what has happened is, if you think about it, what kind of content makes people angry, right? Sometimes when people lie or when there's fake news that are being spread around, it does invoke some form of anger, right? One way or another. And because of that, these types of content gets a lot of virality, if you may, on these types of platforms, which also perpetuates the issue. And I think, again, it all falls on incentives, right? If there's an incentive for people to produce fake news and get, an audience, because the algorithm allows them to do so, then it will continue to happen. So, I mean, how do we solve it, right? Is there any malice coming from Facebook? It's not. I don't think they're out there to promote fake news, but I think they're just there to optimize their business for their revenues or monetization. So if you look into how the Americans are trying to solve it, so it's going to be most likely via some form of regulations, which may or may not succeed. But I feel that as advertisers, they do play. They can play a part, right? If advertisers decide that, hey, I don't want to support a platform that I guess supports fake news or whatnot, or supports anger, if you may, and they start pulling the advertising money away, I can bet every dollar I have that Facebook will solve this problem tomorrow. So I think again, it's interesting way to look at things.
Okay. If I write fake news, do I get anything for it? I mean, I can see how Facebook gets money because it gets passed around, but do I personally get something out of it if I come up with a meme or some fake news thing which gets shared all over the internet? Is there money in it for me?
So if you produce, I guess, a fake news content via one of your own websites, monetization capabilities, and even though you post it on Facebook, if people load that article, you do actually get a share of the revenue. If your fake news is a video-based sort of like content, and you basically enable monetization, there can be pre-rolls or what we call the ad formats that come up before the video, which the provider will also be able to monetize.
Right.
And sometimes it's all about getting an audience by doing content that just angers people so that people starts to follow you. We've seen many that leverages of their audience to sell things to them as well. There are many ways that this can economically benefit people who create things.
Right. Wow. Yeah. Outrage is a terrible thing, isn't it? And do you think that's why people are so outraged all the time now? That we just have a culture of perpetuating, oh, this is terrible. This is terrible. Everything is terrible. Everything is terrible. Things happen.
If you're on Facebook all the time and in your in your feed, 5 out of 10 content makes you angry. I won't be surprised. The person just becomes angrier and angrier, right? It's what you consume, I guess, that also influences how you think.
Yeah, I mean the rise of intolerance in Malaysian society, I'm sure must be partly to do with this, right? This idea that you just feed anger and you feed the worst things. You feed the worst things, right? Anger and hatred, rather than feeding the good things like benevolence and helping people. Gosh, okay. Now just move a little bit to Korea, right? So Korea has Squid Games. Korea has Vincenzo. How does Korea become a world leader in a culture, a cultural behemoth? And how do we follow them? What do we do to become, to come up with the Malaysian Squid Games or a Malaysian Vincenzo? Or a Malaysian Gangnam Style or whatever. What's the first one they did? The Korean dramas, yeah. But how is it that, it's not likely, right, to think that a Western society would suddenly want to watch Korean drama. I mean, it's even unlikely that Malaysians all now follow what Koreans do. So how do we get that?
I think they are like the role model of how do you approach content creation long term. They've made many investments in this, right? It's government supported, it's industry supported, and it really allows or has allowed the Korean entertainment industry to really grow, right? If you tell me 10 years ago that a Korean band would be #1 band on the Billboard charts, people might think you're crazy, but that has happened, right? Within a relatively short time frame. Again, many people have tried to figure out what was like the secret formula or the secret sauce that's allowed Korean entertainment scene to sort of like blow up this way globally. To be fair, there's like no silver bullet. They've done all the things right, from cultivating great content writers towards having big investments into creating best types of dramas, pushing boundaries. Even the local organizations have supported all of this investments as well. So, for example, if you watch a Korean drama or whatnot, all the cars in there are Korean car. Every single brand that they use are LGs or Samsungs. So because of this kind of the ecosystem they have built, it's allowed them to refine their art a lot better and to get them to where they are now. So it's hard to say exactly one or two things they've done right. The actual reality is they've done everything right, and which has allowed them to become what they are right now.
And can we do it? Can Malaysia do it? I mean, we got government support has always been there.
I think we can, but would require us to really be a bit more braver in terms of how do we approach content creation in that sense. Firstly, we need to start thinking global. I don't think that's happening yet. Majority of content that we create are meant for our population. So I think but to be able to start thinking global, we have to be able to have, I guess, a business model to do so, right? I think that's been quite the challenge so far. I think that's the part where we need to crack. I think if we are able to sort of crack that, then it may be becoming regional content giants first before we start thinking global.
No, I mean, you watch Netflix. Right? I mean, suddenly people are watching Korean drama and I don't know, Mexican drama on Netflix, right? So it is possible that they could be watching Malaysian drama as well. It's not impossible.
I think because of the proliferation of streaming services globally, the opportunity for Malaysian content creators to create successful global content is definitely there. If you do a good job, right, you don't have to worry about your content not being available in Brazil or whatnot. It can be available now. Just create awesome content, have it picked up by a large global streaming service, and eventually it might succeed. However, the type of content, the storyline, the writing has to become a bit more global. I think that's where we're not yet there, but it's something that I think we'll be able to invest in and refine to the future.
I don't know. I mean, you watch Parasite. I mean, that's a very Korean storyline, and yet it resonates. So I mean, the idea of golongan atas tindas rakyat marhin is a story which sells everywhere. I think. Not that I know anything personally about that, but yeah, I mean, it's a good storyline. Azeem, what do you think? Do you think we are global? There is a chance for Malaysian culture to be a global culture?
Definitely. We have to improve the quality of our content in a way that we tell the stories, right? So
I don't know. I mean, the content is there, and the plot lines in Malaysian dramas are quite good. I mean, it's not.
Well, it depends on people, right? Yeah. So I do think that as what Rafiq pointed out, the storyline needs. I mean, we can have more depth, to it, multiple dimensions. Try to avoid the easy way out. Of course, quality editing and animation is very important. But of course, being a news agency, the idea is always to try to export content globally, to be able to think about how do we get the quality of journalism to a global standard. Like, for example, TRT World, AJ Plus, Al Jazeera, they managed to penetrate, global market, right? So, and many of Malaysians, when I go back home, father watch BBC, we go to the hotels, we watch Bloomberg. So, the world is our playground. We cannot rest on our laurels. We must grow that audience base, because 3 million Malaysian is not enough, right? And there's a reason why Malaysia's business model has always been to be exporting our product, right? And for us to be a high income nation, we have to export. Therefore, we need to be able to have a good positioning of our brand, how Malaysia fits in the world supply chain, right? How are we good at? We used to be oil and gas, we used to be palm oil. What about content? Are we good in those areas? I guess we have to, I think, get our act together as a country to look at what is it that Malaysia does best. So that
individually, lots of Malaysians have succeeded abroad, right? It's not as if Malaysians can't succeed.
Yeah, exactly. So
abroad, right?
How do we harness that? Yeah, how do we harness that talent, right? To be global.
The creativity is there, talent is there. We have to do some of that. Okay, I just change a bit more. This is because both of you, deal with audiences and you have a lot of digital, you have a lot of analytics about it. Is there a difference between the young people, what young people think in Malaysia and what the older people think? And is there a difference? And what is the difference? Maybe I'll start with Free Malaysia Today. And how do you know? Sorry, one of the questions we have is, how do you know that most of your readers are graduates, or 90% of your readers are graduates?
Surveys. So we conduct surveys.
I see. It's not like you can read somehow, go into my hard drive and.
There are two ways. One is surveys. The other, of course, we look at for age group. We will actually know whether you're a student based on the analytics that we get. But it was a survey done from a third party.
Right. Yeah. Okay. It's not like But so what do you know? What do you know about what young people think and what older people think?
That's a very interesting question.
I'll leave you to define what you define as older people as well. I think your definition of older people and my definition of older people might be slightly different. But anyway, yeah.
I'll make it simple. There's Gen Z, there's millennials, Gen Y, then Gen X, who are about 40 years above. then the baby boomers. So these are the kind of generation that we deal with, and we look at that in that context. Definitely, there is a difference. When we talk about national news, I would say that our audience that are younger, Gen Z, they are, I would say, at least politically speaking, agnostic. They really don't care who, right? They look at the issues that affects them. They do not have a particular, I call that loyalty to a certain party. And they connect with a figure that appears on their platform frequently, and that's a trend. While the older generation, they tend to have a bit of a preference to a certain ideology, right? The younger ones, they are always more global. They because they are exposed to that kind of content. They use social media. They look at how racism is being despised in the global scale, right? So when you talk about national policies, the Gen Z, they were not well, they accept the racial kind of policies less, and thereby we need to be able to tailor that to their interest and need as well. And the older generation, they've already have their preset ideologies and all that. So our challenge as a news organization, as a single brand, how do we cater to all these different segments of societies, right? But as long as we carry what they need to know about, and that's okay, that's great, right? And recently we entered TikTok. Actually, FMT was not quite sure to go into that platform because it looks like it's more social, more laid back. The FMT DNA is we talk national news quite seriously, but surprisingly it worked. With the moment we entered, okay, I'll give you an example. It's Instagram, right? So in the first few hours, we will get about 10,000 views, right? Or maybe 20,000 views. On TikTok, a few videos got 200,000 views within a few hours.
Wow.
That's telling, right? And when we entered TikTok 3 weeks ago, there was a huge bump on our website readership from the Gen Z generation, right? So in additional, I think about 80,000 of them came in. So there is a difference in terms of maybe principles and values, but it's very interesting to know that a lot of them really care about the issues that affect them.
Right.
Yeah.
Gosh. Is that what you find as well? Is that what you see too?
It's very similar, but I think for us as well, it's the format of the content and I would say how we deliver the content to the audiences might also differ based on the demographics. For example, the more experienced generation, if you may, are very familiar with how we tend to write for newspapers, right? Because they've been doing newspapers since young. So the form of delivery that we usually do, more long form, very structured forms of content. I think they feel towards the more experienced generation. But I think for the I guess younger ones, you tend to have to break it down a little bit better, more layman format, easy to understand, a little bit more short form. So I think for us is we cater towards the various demographics based on their preferences on how they would like to consume the content. But type of content, what they want to know actually is very similar, right? Younger people also want to know about policies and how it impacts them. They want to know about the latest gossip, who's dating who and whatnot. I guess the crux of the content is very similar, but the way we deliver, that's where we differ based on the demographic.
Okay. Random question. Does anyone still buy newspapers?
Yes, they do.
They do. Okay.
The numbers are not even close to where it was before, but there's still a sizable number of people buying newspapers. It's still a decent amount, and I think we have managed to figure out a way to ensure that it is at least sustainable for a short-term period, which is why we're still printing.
Right. But you don't need all those printing presses you used to have, right? You used to have so many printing presses.
We used to have 4 printing plants, so we now have only 1, and that's sufficient.
Yeah, that's a shame. But that's how the world works. We're almost end of time, and we had some questions which from the floor, which I think we've all answered. But just one more. This is from Sean Kwa. He says that some media outlets like BuzzFeed, Guardian, etc., have experimented with good news or positive news as a counterpoint to if it bleed it leads. Is that a viable content model in Malaysia?
Maybe I can just take that first.
Mm.
BuzzFeed and Huffington Post were among the I guess the leading new media alternative media companies earlier on. But I think after the 2018 algorithm change, they found it hard to get traffic, based on what they used to get as well. So both, I would say, organizations have sort of like changed a little bit, the way they do content and whatnot, simply because it was very reliant on getting majority of the audience via Facebook before.
I see.
You can't really rely on Facebook as much anymore, and I think because of that, there have been quite a lot of changes coming in on those two.
I see. All right.
So
Facebook,
it's we try. We don't like to also write stories that are. We also tend to write very light-hearted stories, things that celebrates, humankind and achievements of people and whatnot.
yeah.
And they do get traction as well. But again, we don't have zero control over Facebook's algorithms, and they are a source of traffic for us, a sizable one, in fact. So I think sometimes we have to along the way.
Okay. One last question. I think one on animation, and I wonder if you can take it, and the other one on
I'll
media and promoting racial and political harmony. Maybe
take the first one. Azeem can take the
animation.
I'll take the animation one. So actually, we do have investments in animation as well. Actually, that's actually a very good point, which I perhaps wasn't able to highlight earlier. When it comes to exporting content globally, actually Malaysia has a pretty good track record of doing it by animation. Prior to this, you have Upin and Ipin, who have found success in various different countries, globally. You have this company called Animonster that did a brand called Bobo Boy, which also has found some level of success globally. And for us in MIDF Prima, we have this IP called Agent Ali, whose movie we launched 2 years ago. Did really well. The highest grossing animated film in Malaysia at that point of time. And that particular movie was eventually aired or being watched in over 40 countries globally, via licensing tools that we had. So of course you need to dub it or subtitle it and whatnot. But animation tends to travel, and I think it's something that can be unique to Malaysia, simply because one, we have very strong animation talents. We really do produce high quality people that can specialize in animation, and at the same time we're able to produce animation at a cost that's significantly lower versus other countries as well, which is why you do see even global organizations have the animation actually being done in Malaysia. So I think that's basically one of the competencies that we can have as a country moving forward. Because in the end of the day, when it comes to exporting content, you got to pick and choose which area you want to win in, right? You can't win them all. But I think animation is something that can be unique to Malaysia.
Great. Okay. And actually, we're going to finish soon. So I'm finished now. So Rafiq, any final words you'd like to say, especially the young people watching?
All right. So I'd say, final words. I'm not sure. I guess read more of, watch more stuff that we do. I guess be more self-promoting in that sense. But ultimately, the best way to really consume media is really to just think for yourself in terms of what happens, or look into what we create, and just don't follow it blindly. I guess use it as a means to also think for yourself in terms of what we deliver, what kind of content we show, and whatnot. So I think that's important, and should be able to help you sort of shape your thoughts going forward as well.
Great, thank you. So Azeem, some final words, and also how do you think media can promote political and racial harmony?
Right. We have to be honest with ourselves, okay? And when we want to promote racial and political harmony, that must happen, right? It must happen. And we as media, our duty is to educate the public as much as possible to lead towards that. We have to be open to debate about policies, about racial policies. We have to be open to accepting everybody's views and be able to compromise on all of these things. Only then we will genuinely be able to have harmony and political stability that will naturally promote itself to the world. And media, our job is to report it as it is, educate as much as possible. With a more educated society, a media that is responsible in uplifting and captivating them, we will do really well. And as a country and as a society, and as for the kind of words for the younger generation, very simple: care, right? Just care about this nation, care about how it affects you, and make your choice. Do something about it. We as media, our job is to inform you so that you make educated decision, informed choices when it comes to advocating about something, when it comes to about to the polling day, so that we can together make the right choices for the nation.
Brilliant. Thank you. Rafiq, Azeem, thank you so much. Wonderful talking to both of you. And I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I have. And thank you again, and all the best. And it's so good to hear the good stories you have. And thank you everybody else who has tuned in. It's time for us to leave. So you can just press your leave button and that will end everything. So thanks again, Rafiq and Azeem. And
Thank you,
thank you everyone.
everybody.
Thank you everyone else for logging in. Thanks. Bye.
Goodbye. Have a great weekend.